this is very controversial, but I don't care. I believe that high performers and people of greatness and people of excellence, they view responsibility as a positive thing.
Yeah.
And when you are underperforming and when you are selfish and when you just have not done as much personal empowerment, every frustration, inconvenience, obligation, and responsibility looks negative. Where other people go, I can't wait to do that well and show the kids that it can be done well. I can't wait to do that well and show my teammate I can do it well. I can't wait to take on the challenges and responsibilities of life as a mature, competent, capable adult who's doing job one, managing me. I can't wait to see how I perform at the Olympics. I can't wait to see how I perform when they're faster. I can't wait to see how I show up when I'm 30 points down, bro. Those guys, they eat it up. The great people eat that responsibility of greatness up. They like it.
It's interesting. Something else is coming up for me. There's been two moments in the last 6 years. Can you believe it's been 6 years since COVID?
Oh, yeah.
In 2 months, by the time of us recording this, it'll be 6 years since COVID hit. But when COVID hit, because I got into, I guess, the working world around 2008, 2009, right like in the middle of the housing crash. And so I was sleeping on my sister's couch 2007 to 2009, and they weren't hiring at that time. And the economy was crashing, and it was like, they weren't hiring some, college football bum who played arena football and broke his arm, and I had no skills. I had no education, really. They weren't hiring people with master's degrees, let alone someone who barely graduated college. And I remember feeling so helpless and so like powerless because I was like, I don't have any control, or it doesn't feel like I have any control on how to get off my sister's couch, how to make a living, and how to get out of debt. It just felt powerless. I was like, what do I do? And I remember I was like, I never want to have this feeling again. So as I started finally learning how to earn money through having mentors and working hard and all the stuff I've talked about, I remember saying, when there's another crisis, I want to be ready. Like, I want to be ready, whether that's having the right investment strategy, the right savings, the right whatever. So when something happens, I'm ready.
Yes.
So when COVID hit, like you said, I wasn't excited, but I was like, I have been staying ready, so I don't need to get ready for this moment. And this is a nightmare for the world, obviously, and it's not fun. And there's a lot of sadness happening and loss of life, but I am ready for this moment. Like, I'm ready to take on the challenge of what's being thrown my way.
I love it.
And I felt like myself and my team, we thrived in that season. My personal relationship struggled, and another relationship, other stuff struggled, but I was ready for the business moment. Like, I'd prepared for it. And the second moment that's coming up for me was in the last 3 months. I felt like last year I got married, Martha got pregnant, and then we had twins within, 10 months, essentially. And
you re-engaged the Olympic
and I re-engaged the Olympic
really
dream
hard.
and all these different things, right? So it's taking on a lot. And I remember thinking to myself, for the last 5 years, I'd been doing my own healing journey in intimacy and relationships to get me ready to get married. Like, I felt like I've been doing the inner healing journey to create a new preference in relationships.
That's right.
New priorities to have different results and a different feeling that generated from the relationship. And I remember just thinking, like, I need to be emotionally ready for marriage, for kids, because I have no clue what's coming. And it's been a beautiful journey. And at the same time, when Martha, gave birth to our twins, she had about 6 to 8 weeks of extreme complications. She went to the ER twice after coming back from the hospital. She was in the hospital 3 times within a month. And there were some scary moments. But I remember just thinking, thank God I invested 4, 5, 6 years ago in emotional healing to be ready for this. It was extremely uncomfortable. It was challenging emotionally, spiritually, physically, all these things. And it was scary. But I was like, had I not trained myself to prepare for these moments of my future self stepping into marriage and kids, while having to run a business, while having to do this, while training, and keep everything going.
Right.
there's no way I'd have been able to handle it well. I would have been reactive. I would have been, I can't handle this. I would have been broken down emotionally and spiritually and probably crumbled had I not invested years ago.
Love that.
In staying ready so I didn't need to get ready.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we are able to have a vision of our future self that we want, it starts now in doing the actions and creating the habits and creating new preferences like you talked about, which is owning responsibility. We don't like being responsible sometimes, but owning it allows us to be ready for when it hits the fan. You know, it's like when crap happens, you may not handle it perfectly, but you handle it a lot better than if you didn't prepare for this, you know? And so responsibility is a huge one.
I've seen that arc for you too.
Yeah.
If I can just say it, like as a friend, I can share, like as a friend, watching you grow into the man from Marta has been amazing.
Nice.
And there's no way, if you and Marta had intersected 5 years earlier, it would have been a mess.
And she always tells me that. She goes, God, why didn't we meet each other 10 years ago?
No.
Why did we? And I go, because I wouldn't have been ready.
No.
And I would have blown it.
Totally.
And I would have ruined this. And like you didn't want to be with me back
You had to do the work.
I needed to.
And so everyone listening, I have a phrase. It's hard to hear. But I want you to think about the last 3 months. And just tell you, again, I just want to refer to everyone, I'm a high performance coach. This is what I do for a career. In high performance coaching, we have this phrase, you're paid to push. So sometimes I say things that sounds flippant. When someone clips it, they're like, oh, he's a jerk. And I'm like, I just say things because I think that this is true. If you look at your last 3 months, I want to tell everybody listening, you have been training to be able to handle your future dreams' responsibilities or not.
And how you've been training is either going to prepare you for it or you're not going to be prepared.
You're in training.
You're doing it now.
You are training.
How you
are you training to
things,
overeat? Are you training to be mean? Are you training to disengage? Are you training to quit?
Yeah, exactly.
You're training. And so I also think that's a really compelling thought for many people. It took me a long time to realize you don't have future dreams. You have future dreams and responsibilities that come with them.
Yes.
And so, for example, I knew in my business, we have Growth Day and we serve people all around the world. And I said, one day I'm going to have the software platform. We're going to serve people around the world. Well, I had that dream and I thought, actually, how does taxes work around the world?
Yeah.
If I'm selling into Europe or Africa or Asia, how does that work? So I literally went and watched videos, hired a coach, an expert, went and studied a bunch of books and had to learn like, wow, how does that scale? Because I wanted to be earning tens and tens of millions. And, this was long before, one of our companies, became a unicorn company. It was like, how does all that work? I was looking at that 10 years ago. It would be years until I sold, millions and millions in all these other countries. So I had to figure that out. And because the dream is reach millions of people, but there's also taxes, team, blah, blah, blah. So responsibilities, the question I'll go back to the point is you have to have clarity and aspirations for future self. And part of that is the feelings you want, start generating them now. Part of that is responsibilities. How would your future self handle your current responsibilities? Yes. That's FR.
Before you go on there, I have a couple more other examples that I add there.
Just throw in, please. I love this, by the way.
One is early on, my mentor, Chris Hawker, I was broke on my sister's couch and I was like, God, I really want to make some money, but I'd been working for maybe 6 to 8 months. I wasn't really getting a breakthrough financially. I was just kind of struggling, barely getting by. And I was like, gosh, I just want to figure out how to make more money. Because when you are poor and broke and in debt and living off credit cards, it feels like you're suffocating. It feels like you can't breathe. I don't know if anyone can relate to that, but for me, that's how it felt for me. I was just like, and if you don't know the solution on how to get financially out of that suffering, you're just like grasping for anything. And I was like, gosh, I really want to make some money. I just don't know how to do it. And he said something that has stuck with me for the last 18 years. He was like, money comes to you when you're ready for it. And I was like, I feel pretty ready.
These bills show I'm ready.
I feel ready.
Respect it. I'm ready.
Want this. But then, maybe a year and a half, 2 years later, the reason it stuck with me is because I started to earn more money. And it started to come pretty quick after about a year and a half later. Like it started to accelerate once I kind of figured it out. And I remember reflecting back on that conversation. I go, gosh, just like if I'd met Martha 10 years prior, I wouldn't have been ready for it. I wasn't internally ready for it. If I started making all this money that I was making 2 years later, I probably would have blown it. I would have spent it on stupid stuff. I'd still feel scarce around it. I'd feel anxious around it. I wouldn't have the right energy and responsibility to it as when in the time when I started to make it, based on the things I shifted inside of me around it. And so that was one of them. And one of the things I'm doing now, and something my therapist a few years ago, once I felt like got really resolved with certain things I needed to heal. And I felt like I integrated a lot of the lessons and I was taking the actions and I felt like, man, I really feel peaceful. Doesn't mean I'm perfect or I still have challenges, but I felt like internally peaceful. She'd be like, what do you want to talk about this week? And I was like, gosh, I just feel so good. I feel good all the time, but I was like, what are the problems that your 60, 70-year-old successful male clients have? She's like, a lot of the problems are they like make mistakes in their marriages, or they worked so hard for 40 years that they weren't there for their kids and they don't have a relationship with their kids. And they're kind of just like, they've messed up their life, their family, their marriage, their kids. I was like, oh, I don't want that, and I've heard so many great, wise, older men say that success in their 50s, 60s, and 70s is their adult children wanting to hang out with them.
Love that.
Not because they have money, but want to spend time with them just because. And I was like, yeah, that would be a beautiful future self, right? And this was before I had kids. I was like, who do I need to be to emotionally handle and navigate the emotions and ups and downs of children in the world and what they need? And how can I best prepare myself? So I'm training now for my daughters to be teenagers. It's like they're a couple months old, but I'm training like, what do I need to learn so that when they're 2 years old, 6 years old, 10 years old, what are the things that happen around those ages? How do I navigate those things now emotionally so that I'm ready for it? And I think that's what high performers also do, is they're seeing the future that they want to, I want to go to the Olympics. I want to create this in my business. I want to have a beautiful family. And they're training now for something that won't pay off for years or if not decades. They're doing the emotional training now, the skill training, the development, whatever it is, for something that won't pay dividends for a long time.
I can see that's one reason we're huge friends.
Yeah.
And, for those listening, many of you guys know Lewis and I run a mastermind called Ultra.
Yes.
And I can tell you, because I've run that several years now, that the differentiator of the people in that room, you can tell that they want the responsibilities of life that demand more of them.
Yes.
And I would urge everyone to really think about it. The group of people you hang out with, or your team, or your family, or the friends you've chosen, when they talk about responsibilities, is it a negative conversation? Or is it, I'm leveling up conversation?
Yes.
If it's a leveling up conversation, you're probably in the right group. It's a group that can see past problems and see a potential future and believe in something for you beyond what maybe you even believe or beyond where you're at circumstantially now. If you're around people who only complain about responsibilities and obligations, you probably need a new peer group, need a coach, need a mastermind, need the better company culture, need to move on to the next job. I don't know what it is for you, but you have to be really attuned to that, because there is that level in which there's speaking of COVID, there's a viral nature of human energy about responsibilities. And I've been there. I grew up in a very difficult place, economically depressed mining town. Parents, my dad did 3 tours in Vietnam, came back to the United States, that didn't like its soldiers anymore. My mom's from Vietnam. And
Well, from Vietnam? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. French Vietnamese. You can't see the Vietnamese on me? No, never can. But so dad grew up in Montana, wanted to see the world, joined the U.S. Marine Corps. Ended up going to Vietnam in 3 tours, got all shot up.
Wow.
Came back to the U.S., ended up recruiting in the South right during and right after Vietnam, when no one wanted that. So he'd be spit on, things thrown at him, just awful.
Recruiting people to join the military.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
My mom, she had grown up in Vietnam under the first war, what used to be called the Indochina War, which was the French-Vietnamese conflict, which was before the American conflict. So the French-Vietnamese conflict, her father was a French soldier with her mother, who's Vietnamese. He got killed when she was, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah.
So she got shipped to France for the Child of War program.
She speaks French?
Speaks French, yeah.
Wow.
Grew up in, convents, basically.
Wow.
So she grows up, has a terrible time there, abused, treated really terribly, separated from her family in France, separated from her mother, who was still in Saigon.
Oh.
And so mom has terrible, she turns 18, 19, she's like, I'm out of here, goes back to Vietnam, meets another American, marries him, comes to the US. He's terrible to her. They get divorced. She ends up meeting my dad.
Wow.
So my dad had to go to Vietnam, come back to the US. My mom, Vietnam, France, Vietnam, US, and they meet in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
And love at first sight. Just amazing. Bam. Love at first sight. And just had nothing. Neither of them had anything. Left the East Coast to Montana to raise us kids. Because dad wanted to raise us kids in Montana. And, grew up in Butte, Montana, and a tiny little town called Conrad, and then Great Falls, tiny little towns. And Butte had been economically depressed for a long time. It used to be a mining town. And it's a tough place to grow up, brutal. Mom and dad working as many jobs as they could get, trying to raise for us. And there was a lot of alcoholism in that town. It was a very physical town. Lots of bullying, lots of fighting, just an awful town. And I can look back at that kid, as me, being raised through those towns and thinking about the times we had. And my dad kept getting better jobs as we moved throughout. Nothing ever wild or crazy. Ended up managing the DMVs of the state.
Well.
And, from one little one to many of them. And
hopefully the lines were faster there.
Yeah. I wouldn't bring that up to my dad. But, he got better and better jobs. And I noticed that, while they're not the jobs we all talk about in the media world, multi-million-dollar jobs, what I did notice was the people who were getting around, when they talked about problems, they had some ownership to them. It wasn't the government's fault. It wasn't, this town's fault. It wasn't the economy's fault. They kind of like, yeah, this is hard, but here's all the things I'm doing about it.
Yeah.
And I started noticing a change in the culture. Then I went to college. I started noticing a change in the kids who succeeded and the kids who didn't. Then I went to, San Francisco, and I worked for Accenture, this global consulting company. And then, now I've been a high performance coach for 20 plus years and work with the world's best teams, athletes, and everything. And one thing is the way they talk about responsibility. One complains, blames, hates it. Another goes, I wonder what I have to be to handle that next level of complexity and difficulty. What skill set, what competency would I need to deal with? And they want the challenge. It is the tell of the high performer. They want the challenge. It's the tell of positive psychology called flow, right? Flow state is you're like going just beyond your current skill set or competency in a challenge you're engaged in, and it's timely, and you need to be quote unquote engaged. And I think it's just interesting. Are you a person who is fully engaged, taking on hard things that are responsibilities maybe you didn't want or you did? But we all know somebody who's a deadbeat dad. We all know somebody who just refuses to own up to the lie. We all know somebody who refuses to give back even though they were given to so generously. We know people who don't take life's responsibilities, and you can't change your life until you get that self-reliant responsibility ethic. And I don't know, it's hard to say that.
You can't achieve something great being a victim either.
Yeah.
So that's like taking responsibility versus, reacting and being a victim to the circumstance that you have. And so we're talking about becoming free with your acronym, and that's creating the feeling. How do I want to feel? Taking responsibility as well for where you're at and where you want to be. What would the E's be in free?
The next E, which is related again to your clarity and your aspirational self, is expression.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoy this and you want more inspirational content, make sure to click the subscribe button below and click right here to watch what's coming next.